Hello. Today we're going to, and welcome back to Excel by the way, we're going to be talking about naming cells, naming ranges, and using formulas to create some defined ranges. So this is a more advanced piece of Excel, but it's certainly doable and it's very understandable once you see the power that can be done with this application. So when we're talking about Excel, we want to think of what we can do with it and what makes sense for us. When I create a worksheet, I know what's in there because I created it and I'm using it. But sometimes there are other people that might use it, in which case they may want to understand why something works the way it does or be able to follow it backwards essentially. So that's why we would name our cells, because it gives it a more logical thing than B12. That sounds like bingo to me. This is not bingo, this is business. So with that in mind, the spreadsheet that we're going to be working on today is a spreadsheet called Theater. So you're welcome to open your own copy and follow along. Sometimes we may go rather quick, in which case you can just, pause the recording, catch up what you need to do, and continue forward. So when we talk about using cell references, it's helpful because it gives it a more descriptive term than just B12. We might say taxes or something like that. And it's just a more robust piece of that. So we're looking at the documentation page right now of our theater worksheet. So let's click on the invoice sheet. And you can see here we have several different pieces that we're going to work with. The first thing we want to do is we want to come down to B24. And we're going to click on that. When we name a cell range, if you notice I say B24, up here in the name box it says B24. If we click here, we can now change that. Let's type handling cost. Now you'll notice that I did not have any spaces in there, and I use an uppercase and a lowercase, or we call that mixed case, to define that. I could use an underscore or something like that as well to split the two words. We do not put spaces when we use the name box. And once we've got that done, we simply hit the enter key. And now, if I click somewhere else in my spreadsheet, I come back to B24, it tells me it's now called handling cost. Very good. Let's go down to B25, and we're going to call that one parking fee. Same thing, and done. So that's naming an individual cell. I can also give a range of cells a name, and the way that we're going to do this is we're going to select the range A16 through C21. You'll notice up in the name box it has a real funny thing, and that tells how it identifies it. When I release my mouse, it goes to the active cell of A16. We're going to come up here, click in our name box, and we're going to call this ticket prices. And enter. The next range we're going to do is down here, F25 to J25. We're going to call that the transfer area. And let's go name some individual cells. If we come over here to, where do we want to go? J18. Let's call this one ticket cost. And then we'll drop down to J22. Name that one total cost. Not too horrible yet, right? I didn't think so. So what names do we have so far? We can click on the name box, the little drop down arrow right here, and we can see that we have about 6 different names. These will come in handy in a little while. If we wanted to quickly move to one, we didn't know where that parking fee was, we could click on parking fee and it would make the active cell down here at B25. So that gives us an easy way. But if you notice, we already have a bunch of names, right? This A column over here has a bunch of names in it already. So we could take that and, why type it twice? So let's select the range A3 to B12. Now don't worry about that overflow of words that's overflowing here into the C column. That doesn't matter. We're just looking at A3 to B12. Now we're going to go up here on our bars and we're going to click the Formula tab. And then in our Define Name section, we're going to say Create from Selection. And this will automatically generate names for the cells that we've done. Makes it very quick. Now, it's going to say it's looking for things that are headers, right? We don't have any headers in this top row because it's an invoice date and the date, so we uncheck that box. But we do have our information in this left column, so we will leave that checked and we say OK. Now if we go back in our name box area and we check this, look at all the names we now have. We had 6 a moment ago, and with 3 clicks we have many more. Alright? Sometimes we may want to edit the name or delete a name, and there's a lot of ways to do it, but the easiest way to do it is on our Formula tab in our Define Names group. We simply say Name Manager, and it brings up a pop-up box where we could name things. Obviously you see we have a new button here, so we could create new things from here directly if we wanted to, but we don't. For us though, what we want to look at is we're looking for this one here, this defined name that says no period parking decals, and we're going to edit it. And we're going to call it decals. It's too long of a name, and we say OK. Now if you notice, we now have the name decals. Let's scroll down and let's find transfer area. It's right here, and we don't really need that, so we'll hit delete. Am I sure? Why, yes. And close. We've given a whole bunch of things names here, but we haven't put anywhere in a list. So that goes on our documentation page. If we click over on our documentation sheet, we go to cell A10 and we give it, in here we're going to type defined names and enter. This was going to be a spot where we will create this list of our defined names and where they're going to live. It just makes it kind of a key or a legend, so to speak, when we do that. And since we still have our Formula tab here, that's handy, we can go to our Define Names group, and here we are going to do the Use in Formula button, and it gives us all the ones that we have so far. But all we care about at the moment is to paste them. So we're going to say Paste Names, and we want everything on the list, so we say Paste the List, and we'll click somewhere else. Now if you notice, it gives us the reference to, here's donation. It tells us it's on the invoice sheet and it's B12. If you remember, we did our handling cost, right? That was B24. There it is. So it just makes it a lot easier to remember what we need to do or not. So let's go back to our invoice sheet now and let's enter some formulas. Alright, we're going to go to J7 and we're going to say we need the date, right? Well, we've already got the date somewhere else here, so let's borrow that. So we're going to say equals, and that's over there in B3, so we're going to say B3 and enter. Let's go down to G9, which is our subscriber. We have the subscriber already over here, and so we're going to say equals, and that is in B4, So B4 and enter, and there's our Michael. And then down here in G10 we're going to say equals, and the address is over there in B5. So we'll grab B5. Right. So that's one method of entering formulas, isn't it? And if we went up here and we double check this and said, well, what's our formula? We can see in our formula bar it says B5. So that's good. But you know what? There's a better way. Down here in G11, let's type equals C and I. And you'll notice it brings up the city, state, and zip where we named that area before. If we want to select that one, we simply hit the tab key and then we hit the enter key to make it real. And that pulls the address over. We're going to do the same thing on the phone. We're going to say equals PH. There's our phone. Hit the tab key, hit the enter key, and there we have an address. That saves me a lot of time and a lot of potential errors. Alright, we're going to go over to column I and row 14 now. And we're going to enter our ticket quantity. In this case, we're going to say equals, and we're going to click on the cell B8. If you notice, it says ticket quantity because it's a name cell, and that's fine, but when we hit the enter key, it becomes the number 4. Here in this one, we're going to say equals. We're going to come over and find our series, which is in B9. Click it, enter. Our location, the same thing, equals, and that's B10.
Hello.
Alright, so let's back up a second and check our work. If we look at our ticket quantity, we have 4. If we click on that cell, it tells us that it is a named, it's pulling it from a named place called ticket quantity, so that's correct. If we go down, we can check our series, that is this, and that's correct. It crosses over to our invoice data segment and the balcony. Good. Alright, now let's go to cell J18, which is our ticket cost. J18. Now here we're going to enter, we have to figure out how much to do this. We only want to do this formula once, so it only makes sense then if we use an if statement. Yes, our friend if. So let's go up in our function library. We'll click logical and if, and it opens up our function argument. This is my favorite way to deal with functions anytime we have to do this. So our logical test, we're going to say location equals orchestra. Make sure you spell it right, because if you don't, we'll have bad things. Make sure you put the quotations on there too, because otherwise that's going to be problematic. Alright, if it's true, we're going to use a VLOOKUP function, and we're going to look at the series of ticket prices, which is over here in column 2, right? Because if it's true, it's going to look over here at the ticket price table for the series, and the orchestra is in column 2. And if otherwise it's false, and we close our parentheses. Now if it's false, we're going to do another VLOOKUP, and we're going to look at series whoops, no spaces, remember, prices, and that is in column, the third column of that table, and once again we say false at the end. Alright, and press OK. Alright, so that tells us our ticket cost is $150, but here's the problem. He bought 4 of them, so now we need to say, how do we get that? So we're going to click up, because we still have, this is our active cell, we can click up in the formula bar at the end of the formula and hit and multiply, so the asterisk, and we're going to multiply it by ticket quantity. And if you start spelling it out, you'll notice you can spell it this way. Once you find the name, you can hit the tab key and enter. So now our total changes to $600. if our formula, looking back at this formula, if the formula doesn't show everything on your particular screen, you can expand the formula bar over here on the far right side, which will give you more space to look at some of these longer ones. You can expand it and collapse that fairly easily. Alright, down here in J19 we're going to put our handling cost. So simply to put equals and HA, there it is, tab and enter. On decals we were going to say equals decals. There's our decals. We're not quite done with that though, right? Because we need to know how many decals. So we're going to multiply times the parking fee. And that will give us $30. And of course this one is simply equals donation. Now we need to total this. What's the easy way to total it? Of course that's our sum. So we say equals sum. And we hit tab. And now we can select our range. We want the ticket cost, handling fees. Highlight them and press enter. So that gives us a total of $690. If you remember when we were up here entering our information originally, we put B3, B4, B5 before we started entering our name cells. That can be kind of confusing to people. So we can apply names that already exist in other places, and we can do this for us. If we look at our defined names group, if we click the define name arrow, we can come down here and we can say apply names. We can look through the list and we can say what are the things that we've already done that apply names. In our case, let's select address, invoice date, and subscriber. To make multiple selections, you just hold down your control button. You say OK. Now when I click over here, instead of it saying B4, now it says subscriber. Didn't pick up the address correctly though, did it? So let's try that again. Define names, apply names, click our address again, and OK. There, now it's better. Alright. So let's finish up our sheet here. Down in our transfer area, we're going to make some totals. This becomes sort of our total area. Down here in F25, we're going to say equals, that's going to be our subscriber name. So we tab to enter it, tab over to the next one, so that's Michael. The next one is going to be our invoice date, so equals invoice, there it is, invoice date, tab twice. The next one is our ticket quantity, tab twice. The next one is ticket cost. We arrow down to select the ticket cost and tab twice. And the last one is our total invoice. Tab down and, arrow down and tab twice. And that will complete our assignment for today. So what we have done is we added defined names to our spreadsheet. We put them on our documentation page so that people will know where it is, and within our invoice we selected it so that it will choose the names for others that go and look with what they do. In this case, for fun, if we changed our ticket quantity to 5, you'll notice that it changes everywhere within there. So as always, we'll change this back to 4. As always, when we're done, we're going to file and save our file. And if you're like me, I like to give new names, and I usually use a date associated with that. And very good. If you have any questions, you know where to go to get help. Come and ask us. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.